So, picture this. Imagine handing the keys to your upscale luxury villa back to the bank, packing a single bag, and voluntarily moving to a literal toxic wasteland in the Gobi Desert.
Oh, well.
Right. And the drinking water there is, it's literally laced with
Yeah,
carcinogens.
that is intense.
And now imagine looking someone dead in the eye, surrounded by this yellow dust and a dilapidated shack with no plumbing, and telling them it was the best, most enriching decision you have ever made.
It's the ultimate rejection of the standard human pursuit of comfort. I
Yeah.
mean, you aren't just stepping off the corporate ladder here. You are actively seeking out the harshest, most unforgiving environment on the planet.
It sounds completely contradictory to human nature,
You
but that is
know.
the exact scenario we're unpacking for you, our listener, on today's deep dive.
Yes, we are.
We are looking at a translated letter dated April 18th, 2014. It was written by a man named Hu Feng, and he addresses it to a group of people he calls his brothers and sisters. Our mission today is to really dig into the fascinating psychology, the highly unique spiritual framework, and, well, the communal power dynamics outlined in this single, incredible document.
But before we dive into the physical and mental architecture of this community, I do need to set a crucial ground rule for our deep dive today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Good point.
Because this text deals with, intense ideological devotion, alternative spiritual living, and heavy claims of severe societal persecution. Because of the nature of these topics, it is very important for you to know that we are acting purely as impartial guides here.
Right, exactly.
We are not endorsing the theology, the lifestyle choices, or the claims of persecution made in this text. We are simply analyzing the fascinating ideas and the worldview contained entirely within the author's own words. We're really just looking at how this specific group constructs their reality.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because reading Wei Feng's description of his life is like reverse engineering the American dream.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Usually the goal is to work hard in some figurative desert to eventually escape and buy a villa, but he did the exact opposite.
Totally.
He describes leaving behind favorable living conditions overseas. He talks about giving up 3 separate beautiful properties in Yunnan that he calls poetic Zenatidus. Zenatidus. And he trades all of that for a place where it rarely rains, where there are no toilets or bathrooms, and where he just breathes in sand all day. He even openly admits the water they drink is highly alkaline and carcinogenic.
It's a sensory nightmare by any modern standard. I mean, the gritty yellow dust in your teeth, the chemical burn in your throat from the water.
But his internal emotional state does not match that external nightmare at all.
Not even a little bit.
He claims he has no regrets. He actually says he feels rich, that he is surrounded by beautiful scenery, and that he is full of joy. So my question is, how does a person mentally transform a barren, toxic wasteland into a beautiful landscape? Like, what is the mechanism there?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying philosophical framework Sufeng uses to process physical reality. He states very clearly in the text, life is a journey of life on earth, and he actually capitalizes the second life.
Okay, so it's a spiritual thing.
Exactly. He views human existence as a temporary transit, and because it's just a temporary journey, he argues that what we call good scenery and bad scenery are fundamentally the exact same thing.
Wait, really? The same thing?
Yeah, they're just passing visuals. Rich days, poor days, comfort, agony. It genuinely does not matter to him.
He leans heavily on a concept translated as everything disappears in the end, right? The text mentions the phrase si, which translates roughly to the 4 elements being fundamentally empty.
Yes, that is a core concept to understand here. It borrows from Buddhist philosophy, asserting that the physical world is ultimately an illusion.
Okay, I'm following.
So if a luxury villa in Yunnan and a dilapidated, toxic shack in the Gobi Desert both mathematically equal 0 in the grand scheme of the universe, then chasing a villa is pointless.
Because it's just 0.
Right. You are only chasing the temporary feeling of comfort.
No.
So Juefeng is essentially hacking that feeling. He believes that by seeking out extreme bitterness, like this absolute bottom-tier standard of living, he is actually enriching the inner contents of his mind.
That is a massive paradigm shift. Instead of avoiding pain, pain literally becomes the goal.
He views experiencing the absolute full spectrum of human bitterness and sorrow as the only way to live a complete life. If you only experience comfort, your mind remains empty.
Wow.
So he looks at the dust and the poisoned water, and because of this Hu Chi framework, he genuinely perceives it as a splendid reality. He has decoupled his happiness from his physical comfort entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but honestly also a bit perplexing. He doesn't just treat this as some stoic exercise in mental toughness or minimalist living.
No, it goes way beyond that.
He actually views this suffering as a literal mathematical equation. He takes the concept of spiritual growth and turns it into an accounting spreadsheet.
The cosmic ledger. It is one of the most unique aspects of his entire philosophy.
Yeah, he writes that the sum of positive and negative energy in the universe is zero. So it's a zero-sum universe. And he builds this theory using this incredible theological blender.
Right, pulling from everywhere.
He claims he is accompanied by the greatest creator, but also Buddha, gods, celestial saints, and the Tao. He's pulling vocabulary from Christianity, Buddhism, and Taoism to create this hybrid cosmology.
It's wild.
And within this cosmology, what you get and what you give must always remain perfectly balanced at zero.
If we break down the physics of that idea applied to human emotion, it is staggering.
How so?
Well, if the universe demands a net zero balance, it means if you experience a massive amount of joy and luxury right now, you are putting yourself in debt.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you will owe the universe an equal amount of sorrow and suffering later.
So by abandoning his villas and drinking alkaline sludge, he is essentially front-loading the sorrow.
He is gamifying suffering
That is wild.
by deliberately taking very little enjoyment and enduring massive hardship. He believes he is doing something highly strategic. He is hoarding positive energy for the future. He explicitly says, all my treasures are now saved in heaven.
I want to make sure I'm grasping the literalness of this. Is he basically saying that every single sip of that bitter, chemical-laden runoff water is a deposit-yielding interest in a cosmic bank account?
From his perspective, absolutely. And if we look at this from a psychological standpoint, this is a brilliant, almost impenetrable defense mechanism against despair.
Because it gives it meaning.
Exactly. When bad things happen to people, the natural human reaction is to feel like a victim. We ask, why me? We feel like the universe is unfair. But if you view the universe as a strict, impartial ledger where energy is perfectly conserved, then extreme suffering is no longer a tragedy. It isn't bad luck.
It's an aggressive investment strategy.
It provides total psychological armor. If you are drinking undrinkable water and you believe in the zero-sum math, that hardship is actively buying you future blessings from the Tao, or the greatest creator. This framework redefines his fundamental understanding of joy and freedom. He states that happiness comes from creation, and blessings come from selfless dedication. In his mind, he isn't trapped in a harsh desert. He is an incredibly wealthy man, accumulating vast cosmic fortunes.
And he extends this financial logic to his followers, promising that because they are enduring this horrific environment with him, their future lives will be as brilliant as a painting.
Which is a very powerful narrative and quite honestly necessary to keep people moving forward in such brutal conditions.
Right. So if you truly believe that suffering is the currency of the universe, it completely changes how you build a society. It means the traditional hierarchy of power has to be turned entirely upside down.
How so?
Well, think about a normal corporate structure. The CEO gets the corner office, the massive salary, the catered lunches. The currency of power is luxury and access. But in Shofeng's group, the currency of power is deprivation.
Because if comfort is a cosmic debt, then a leader giving themselves luxury would be spiritually bankrupting themselves.
Exactly. Shofeng points out this profound irony in their living situation. He admits straight up that he is the one who gets the most in the community. He has the highest status.
Right.
And what is his grand executive perk? While a dozen of his followers cram into single rooms, he gets to share a small double room with a bunk bed.
A bunk bed.
A cramped, bare minimum mattress. That is the absolute zenith of privilege in this group.
It is essentially a martyrdom contest. By taking the bunk bed, Shufeng makes himself completely immune to criticism from his followers. He can't be accused of hypocrisy.
And the power dynamic gets even more extreme when you look at his top lieutenants. He specifically names his 5 branch directors. These are the people managing the day-to-day operations.
Right, the leadership team.
Yeah. You have a director named Foye, who literally lives in a van. You have another named Bian, who lives in a tiny, narrow gatehouse. Shenggong, Xintao, and Hengde are all crammed into basic rooms with everyone else.
Wow.
These leaders are the ones doing the heaviest, dirtiest, and most dangerous work in the compound every single day.
It completely inverts the normal human instinct for status and safety. Normally, you work your way up the ranks to avoid dangerous manual labor. Here, the reward for leadership is greater physical risk and worse living conditions.
But, the detail in the text that truly stopped me in my tracks wasn't the leaders sleeping in vans, it was the elderly members.
Yeah, that part is tough to read.
Shuifeng asks the reader to look at the older people in their group. He names Ende and Shenqi, who are over 80 years old. He names Jinxi and Xuande, who are over 70.
Right.
For you listening right now, picture your own 80-year-old grandmother or grandfather. Now, picture them out in the Gobi Desert in a sandstorm doing heavy manual labor. And according to Shuifeng, they work tirelessly, wholeheartedly, and they never, ever complain.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this total absence of complaints among the elderly is the ultimate validation for Shuifeng's theology.
I just struggle to understand how that level of buy-in is even possible. How do you get octogenarians to do hard labor in a desert with what he describes as endless laughing and happiness?
Well, it comes down to a deeply ingrained psychological phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance.
Okay, unpack that.
When humans commit to a belief, especially one that requires immense sacrifice, it becomes incredibly difficult for the brain to admit that the sacrifice was a mistake.
I see.
If an 80-year-old is sweating in the toxic dust, admitting they made a wrong turn in life would be psychologically devastating. So the brain protects itself. It doubles down.
Oh, wow.
The mind decides, I am not suffering, I am actually engaged in a divine mission, and this labor is pure joy.
The shared suffering binds them together.
It acts like a superglue. Think about trying to organize a group of people to build a house, let alone a society in a desert. There's always friction, always complaints about the food, the temperature, the workload.
Sure.
But Sufing looks at these septuagenarians working in the dust, he looks at his directors sleeping in vans, and he sees perfect harmony. To him, this proves that his cosmic ledger works. He asks, rhetorically, who are such a group of people? Are they not a group of celestials?
He calls them the Chanyuan celestials. So in his mind, their ability to bypass the normal human urges for comfort and their harmony in the face of brutal hardship is the literal proof that they are no longer just human.
Right.
They have transcended biology and sociology.
They're operating entirely outside of normal human societal norms. The zero-sum math applies to the whole group. They're all collectively making deposits into that cosmic bank account together. That shared purpose, combined with the extreme physical isolation, generates the insular harmony he is describing.
So we have this incredibly vivid picture of internal cohesion. Smiling 80-year-olds, lieutenants happily sleeping in vans, a leader thrilled with his bunk bed, all united by this cosmic ledger.
Yeah.
It sounds idyllic in a very gritty, post-apocalyptic kind of way. But then the logical progression of this extreme isolation hits a wall, because this internal utopia exists in stark contrast to their relationship with the outside world.
Right. The final paragraphs of the letter shift the focus completely from the internal harmony to the external reality, and it introduces a very dark defensive posture.
Shuifeng talks about the past 4 years of the community. He claims they have built this culture entirely on their own, without a single shred of outside manpower or financial support.
Okay.
But instead of the world looking at them and saying, wow, what a fascinating experiment, he says they face severe external hostility. He lists it out plainly. They're being ridiculed, scolded, attacked, and persecuted by mainstream society.
Now, keeping our strict neutrality ground rule in mind, we only have Shuifeng's perspective on this conflict. We don't know the specifics of the ridicule or what actually triggered the attacks,
Of course.
but the psychological mechanism of how he processes this external hostility is a textbook study in group dynamics.
What shocked me was the sudden shift in his tone. He drops the, Zen, peaceful, water-drinking philosopher persona and takes a deeply defiant, almost militant historical perspective.
Yes, he does.
He says that people with great foresight will eventually see their brilliant achievements. And then he uses this phrase for his critics. He says the people persecuting them today will suffer the curse of history, and their behaviors will be recorded on the shame pole of human history.
That is intense.
That is incredibly intense language.
The shame pole of human history. That is an aggressive, absolute statement. It is not the language of someone who is passively hiding from the world in a desert.
For a group that claims to embrace all suffering as a cosmic deposit, there is a fierce certainty in their own righteousness. They aren't just enduring the ridicule, they genuinely believe they are the main characters of human civilization's timeline.
And this raises an important question about how insular communities survive immense external pressure. Normally, When a fringe group is attacked, ridiculed, or investigated by the mainstream, it can cause severe internal fractures.
Because people panic.
Right, people within the group start to doubt. They wonder if maybe the outside world is right. But Shuafeng doesn't just survive the persecution, he weaponizes it.
Wait, how does he manage to turn that pressure into fuel?
It goes right back to the cosmic accounting we discussed earlier.
Oh, the ledger.
Yes. If you already believe that suffering is a strategic investment, then external persecution is just another form of suffering that guarantees your future blessings. It actually validates your worldview.
Because it's hard.
Exactly. Think about it. If the broken, materialistic, comfort-obsessed world is attacking you, it must be because you hold the ultimate truth. The persecution becomes the ultimate proof of their historical importance.
It validates the boundary between the celestials inside the compound and the corrupt humans outside.
It creates an impenetrable feedback loop. Good things happening prove they are blessed. Bad things happening like persecution prove they are righteous martyrs earning cosmic interest. There is no scenario where they can be proven wrong.
So what does this all mean for their ultimate mission? Because with that kind of psychological armor, they clearly aren't just sitting in the desert waiting for the end of the world.
No, they are staggeringly ambitious. The letter ends not with a plea for peace, but with a rally cry. He wants them to bathe in the spiritual light of the greatest creator and continue climbing to something he calls the Celestial Island Continent.
Which sounds like an ultimate spiritual destination, like achieving nirvana or reaching heaven. But he pairs that spiritual goal with a very physical, earthly, logistical nightmare.
He doesn't just want one isolated compound in the Gobi Desert to survive. Shuafeng's vision is to recreate the luxury Xanadus he left behind in Yunnan, but on a massive global scale, built entirely by this specific, suffering-hardened community.
Oh, wow.
He tells his followers to create a splendid future. First, some, then several, next dozens, and finally hundreds of Xanadus, where people, society, and nature can coexist happily and harmoniously.
It is a wild, unpredictable ride of a document. We start with a man handing the keys of his villas back to walk into a desert with poisoned wells. We dig into this zero-sum, gamified cosmic math where suffering literally equals wealth. We see a communal hierarchy where the currency of power is deprivation, and 80-year-olds do manual labor with a smile.
It's incredible.
And it all culminates in this defiant, historical stance against the outside world, weaponizing their own persecution to fuel a mission to build hundreds of utopian Xanadus across the globe.
It really is a masterclass in how a specific framework of reality, when adopted totally and without reservation, can entirely rewrite human motivation, endurance, and social structure.
It forces you to examine your own baseline assumptions about life. I mean, for you listening right now, commuting to work or walking the dog, how much of your daily happiness is tied directly to your physical comfort?
A lot, usually.
We spend so much energy, time, and stress trying to upgrade our homes, our cars, the thread count on our sheets. But here's a group of people who claim to have found impenetrable, unshakable joy by doing the exact opposite. It asks the question, how much of our well-being is dictated by our physical environment, and how much is dictated purely by our internal sense of purpose?
I would leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that isn't explicitly spelled out in the text, but is hovering just beneath the surface of everything Shuafeng writes.
What's that?
Shuafeng explicitly defines freedom as continuously climbing to the highest realms. But in our modern world, we define freedom entirely differently. We define it as having the most choices, the most comfort, the most autonomy, the most money in the bank to insulate ourselves from hardship.
Right.
But this letter from the toxic dust of the Gobi Desert challenges us with a radical, highly uncomfortable concept.
Yes.
It's true, unshakable freedom only found when you voluntarily give up every single comfort you have.
If you are still holding tightly onto the keys to the villa, are you ever really free? That is a lot to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep seeking out those multiple perspectives, and we will catch you next time.